Every character in any media ever deserves a good doppelganger, and this is no different for the king of the monsters. First introduced in 1974's Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla, Godzilla's mechanized imposter has had numerous iterations throughout the years, and to celebrate his 50th birthday, I've decided to rank all of his designs featured in the movies from worst to best. Once again, I'm not going to be including his iterations from the comics, nor from media like Godzilla. Listen, he's cute and all, but he doesn't quite measure up to the others. Also, I'd like to make it clear that this is my opinion and not objective in any way. You're probably going to disagree with some of my placements, and that's perfectly fine. Just try not to be too toxic in the comments below. Let's try to keep this civil. But enough disclaimers. Let's rank these mechanical monstrosities. It's no secret that the Godzilla anime trilogy was a disappointment to many fans, and its depiction of MechaGodzilla is certainly a contributor to that. Right off the bat, its design leaves a lot to be desired. The body itself is very jagged and hobbled together, which if I'm being honest, I kinda like it. Given the horrendous state of Earth in the anime trilogy, I think it makes sense that he looks like he was made out of random pieces of sheet metal. Unfortunately, I cannot forgive the pancake head because it really ruins the entire design. Listen, I know Godzilla is killing humanity and all, but they could have put some time into making the head look less stupid. Although none of this matters since we literally never see this iteration of MechaGodzilla in action since all he accomplished was malfunctioning before morphing into a giant city thanks to the nanometal that makes up his body. Due to the fact he is never seen on field fighting Godzilla, in addition to his design just being ass, he's a natural choice for last place on this ranking. I do like the detail of him being designed by the Bilusaludo aliens. The Bilusaludo are heavily inspired by the Black Hole Planet 3 aliens from the original 1974 Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla and its 1975 sequel, Terror of MechaGodzilla. Both races created their respective eras Mecha-G, and both had their planets enveloped by a black hole. Although the Black Hole Planet 3 aliens were weird monkey people, whereas the Bilusaludo just resembled dark-skinned humans. On second thought, let's move on. Showing up in 1993's Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla 2, this big boy was created from the remains of Mecha King Ghidorah that were abandoned by the Futurins in the earlier 1991 film Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. It was also the first MechaGodzilla to be created by humans and was designed to be piloted from the inside. Unfortunately, these engineers didn't spend enough time refining the aesthetic of the mech because this one doesn't look the best. It's not horrible by any means, but it pales in comparison to its competition with some design elements that leave me scratching my head in confusion. First off, the head itself doesn't look imposing in the slightest. He's got this constant derpy expression, and the weird fin on top of his head just looks plain goofy. Compare this to Showa era's MechaGodzilla. Now this is the face of something that will kill you, and enjoy doing it. Hell, they even made the head fin look badass. His questionable features continue into the body. Why does he have pecs? Why is his crotch so well defined? And why does the plasma grenade launcher look like a big belly button? Overall, I'm not big into the bulbous and overly round look of this guy. I mean seriously, you call those dorsal plates? I'm pretty sure the plastic knives in the school cafeteria are sharper than those. However, his design does improve slightly when he transforms into Super MechaGodzilla, in which he fuses with another anti-Godzilla weapon, the Garuda, and receives a sweet new jetpack equipped with double maser cannons. And speaking of weapons, this one ain't slacking on long-range options. He's got missiles of the paralyzing and tranquilizing varieties, shock anchors that can burrow into the Big G's skin and electrocute him, and a rainbow beam that can be fired from his mouth called the Mega Buster, which puts Mega Man's version of the weapon to shame. Oh, and he also has laser eyes, cause you know, why not? While all these weapons are flashy and look dope thanks to the excellent special effects, you may have noticed he lacks any real hand-to-hand combat abilities, because those dough claws ain't gonna do shit against the durable Heisei Godzilla. As a result, most of the action scenes in Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla 2 are exclusively energy blast fest, which was very intentional since the suit itself was expensive and hard to repair, prompting director Takao Okawara to avoid any heavy physical combat scenes involving the suit. Regardless, the suit does have some cool elements, but it's found itself amidst fierce competition, leaving it to fall short, even though it seemingly had the height advantage. This cyborg isn't technically a MechaGodzilla, but is close enough in my book. The coolest thing about this monster is that he's actually built from the corpse of the original 1998 Zilla, and like Showa's MechaGodzilla, this one was also built by aliens. Although these ones are weird crab people as opposed to space monkeys, doesn't stop Nick Totopoulos from calling them that though.
We need you! You really gonna let those space monkeys beat you?
Come on, Nick Tapalapa, that's offensive, probably. Anyway, CyberGodzilla actually makes the 1998 Zilla badass, and those aliens did their research on Godzilla and made sure to re-equip this animated lizard with the character's signature, blue atomic breath. Plus some missile launchers for good measure. Can't have a MechaGodzilla without missiles. This might be a stretch and a total coincidence, but I can't help but notice that his skin is purple with silver mechanical implants. The addition of a mouth laser and missiles also reminds me of a certain other purple cyborg dinosaur from the time period. I'm not trying to say there was any actual connection, but CyberGodzilla walked so that Meta Ridley could fly. I really appreciate how detailed the mechanized portions of his body are and how they actually look like they're piercing through his organic skin. It not only looks awesome, but it does make me feel a little bad for Zilla. Poor Lizard was murdered by the American government after they killed all but one of her children, and then aliens rebuilt her as a cyborg before being destroyed by her only living son. I know everyone and their mother hated this design back in '98, but Zilla deserves better than this. But hey, at least they look cool while being in excruciating pain. Okay, I know there is no dimension where this is a MechaGodzilla, but hear me out. Like MechaGodzilla, he's a doppelganger of the Big G. Plus he's made out of crystals from outer space, and crystals are minerals. And you know what element can be found in minerals? Titanium. And you know what most MechaGodzillas are made out of? Titanium. I mean hell, Showa MechaGodzilla is made out of space titanium, so maybe SpaceGodzilla is just the raw form of the element. So BAM! Through that incredibly biased logic, we can say without a doubt that SpaceGodzilla is secretly a MechaGodzilla. Also, I just need another entry for the list, and people got mad at me for not saying anything about this guy last time. This extraterrestrial beast was formed when Godzilla's cells ended up in space and came into contact with weird crystals, somehow resulting in the creation of this thing. Not even the film can decide who was responsible for those cells ending up out there, placing the blame on both Biollante and Mothra. Although I'm pretty sure Biollante wouldn't have existed in the current timeline because of the time travel shenanigans in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, so I'm thinking Mothra screwed up on this one.
Let's just keep it as our secret. You can tell your son about it when he's born, Major Spielberg.
Regardless of origins, he looks pretty damn cool, with his most apparent feature being the two giant crystals sticking out from his shoulders. These are capable of firing the Corona Beam, and yes, that's its actual name. It's essentially this guy's answer to Godzilla's atomic breath, except he can control its path with his telekinetic abilities, of which he uses extensively against the Big G. His signature gravity tornado technique is so powerful that it can lift the king of the monsters into the air and send him flying into buildings like he's a ragdoll. Beyond that, he can summon crystals from the ground and hurl them like spears at any monster that's unfortunate to end up in his path. He can also summon a crystalline shield to defend himself and even reflect back Godzilla's atomic rays. Now that I think about it, this guy is basically if Diamond Head from Ben 10 and Godzilla had a baby. Besides the crystallized shoulders, he looks relatively similar to Heisei Godzilla, albeit with bluer skin and a pinkish red middle belly. He also has a small formation of crystals atop his forehead, which is probably what enables him to use his powerful telekinetic abilities. The most interesting aspect of his design is his mouth, as it's very different from Godzilla's and actually resembles that of Biollante. Both of them have fangs hanging from outside of their mouths, and they both have their gums exposed when they open it. Even their roars sound alike. So maybe Biollante is the culprit for this bugger's existence. I don't get how that would work with the timeline, but any evidence to have Mothra be innocent of her crimes is fine by me. Oh, and if all that wasn't enough, SpaceGodzilla can fly and takes on a different appearance when doing so. When airborne, his dorsal plates transform into a cocoon of crystals that enables him to fly through the power of space magic. With all this crap in his arsenal, I'd say he makes for a tougher foe than Super MechaGodzilla did in terms of Heisei Godzilla. But he made one fatal mistake, threatening the king's son. This odd incarnation of the character appears in the 2018 film Ready Player One and is an artifact that exists within a virtual reality game, or something like that. I have never actually seen Ready Player One nor have any real interest in watching it, but I cannot deny that this design goes hard. One thing I love right off the bat is how vicious this MechaGodzilla looks. The red eyes can send chills down anyone's spines, and the gaping mouth capable of shooting 2014 style Godzilla atomic breath doesn't make it any less terrifying. Speaking of Godzilla 2014, this guy seemed to be a fan of Godzilla's dorsal fins because he essentially has the exact same ones, although I feel they actually fit MechaGodzilla better. He also sports a head fin reminiscent of previous designs, and while it does look a tad weird from the front, it makes up for that by looking baller as hell from the side. I also personally love the wires sticking out of his arms, and the small red lights scattered across his body contribute to this thing being a mechanical monstrosity. Plus they brought back the fingertip missiles from Showa's MechaGodzilla, which instantly gives this one some bonus points. Really the only thing holding this Mecha G back is his lack of screen time, because this design is an absolute banger. America's first attempt at a MechaGodzilla was a resounding success, but then they made another one a few years later, and the Monsterverse's depiction is somehow even more stupendous than Ready Player One's. Though it shouldn't be surprising given the same dude who made the last one, Jared Krykevsky, designed this behemoth as well. This MechaGodzilla's origins feel like a combination of the first three Japanese-era depictions. He's the villain of the story like Showa was, built by humans like in Heisei Millennium, and like Millennium's is powered by a neural network of a deceased kaiju. But said kaiju happens to be King Ghidorah, who is the kaiju salvage in the Heisei era that make its MechaGodzilla, essentially making this guy a Ghidorah in disguise. Originally, Ren Serizawa of Apex was meant to pilot this abomination, but the consciousness of the leftmost Ghidorah head, San, or as most people know him as, Kevin, took control of the machine so he could rematch Godzilla. Kevin immediately beelined it for the Big G in Hong Kong and quickly demonstrated his powerful abilities upon his rival. He's covered in titanium plating strong enough to withstand being pile-drive through skyscrapers and other fierce blows from Kong and Godzilla. He's also able to fire the proton scream beam from his mouth, which is shown to be strong enough to outdo even Godzilla's atomic breath. His tail is also lethal, having a spinning drill-like weapon at its tip which Krykevsky said was capable of firing a proton scream of its own, very likely a nod to Shin Godzilla, though it's sadly never shown in the film. As you'd expect from any MechaGodzilla, this bad boy is equipped with missile launchers, this time blasting out of his backplates, which are also home to jet boosters that give him the edge on Godzilla in close combat. Overall, this MechaGodzilla is surprisingly nimble and is actually much skinnier than Godzilla, giving him the speed advantage. I just love how intricate the machinery is, and all the individual moving parts make this guy come alive like no other MechaGodzilla has before. Every single inch of his body is filled with immaculate detail, with one of my favorites being the buzzsaws that line the inside of his fingers, perfect for gripping radioactive lizard flesh. He also retains the glowing red eyes of his predecessor, and he looks even more villainous with his gaping smile. When battling, he can direct his own Hollow Earth energy to supercharge his strikes, which is visually depicted through these awesome blue bursts of neon. Some take issue with the blocky design of the Titan, but personally I like the look and it reminds me of a Transformer, which was actually one of the director's, Adam Wingard, inspirations for this guy. The Monsterverse has a phenomenal track record when it comes to adapting Toho's iconic monsters, and MechaGodzilla is no different. If you were to look up the word iconic in the dictionary, then the picture of the Showa era's MechaGodzilla would be chilling right next to it. There's actually two separate Showa MechaGodzillas, but they're both very similar. Regardless, we'll start with the one from 1974's Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla. First off, I just love how sinister the sadistic robot looks, seemingly always having a villainous grin on its face. Fitting, given the fact it was built by the evil Black Hole Planet 3 aliens, the weird alien monkey people I mentioned way earlier on the list. I love the rustic and sheet metal aesthetic this one has, with all the rivets and tubing visible. But don't let these low-tech features fool you, because this MechaGodzilla is built from the strongest material of all.
This material can only be space titanium.
Space titanium? You mean it's from outer space?
This lad is also strapped to the extreme, and puts every other MechaGodzilla around him to shame with the sheer arsenal this one can utilize. He's got missiles in his mouth, missiles at his knees, missiles at his fingertips, missiles at his toes, laser eyes that can shoot rainbow space beams, a crossbeam that fires from under the flap on his chest, and my personal favorite ability, he can create a protective shield around himself by rotating his head around at Mach speed. Also, unlike his contemporaries, this guy is far more capable in airborne combat, as all he needs are two propulsion jets on the bottoms of his feet to take flight, while also being able to launch all of his weapons even while flying horizontally. This first MechaGodzilla is destroyed by Godzilla when he exploits the one weakness of space titanium: magnets. Realizing this, Godzilla turns himself into a giant magnet, which prevents the mechanized menace from flying away, who is then swiftly decapitated by the raging lizard. Not being ones to give up, the aliens return a year later in terror of MechaGodzilla and rebuild their kaiju as MechaGodzilla 2. He's mostly the same as the last one, with only a few small aesthetic differences, with a few extra buttons here and there, and a slightly different arrangement of dorsal plates. The most obvious addition are the characters of MG2 on his left arm, standing for Megalon and Gigan 2, hinting at the planned return of Megalon and Gigan for the cancelled 1976 film Godzilla Reign of Megalon. Even despite this design's age, it's still proven to be relevant in modern Godzilla stuff, since the robot Godzilla featured at the very end of 2021's anime series Godzilla Singular Point is very clearly based off the classic 74 design. Also, I gotta say, how come both Godzilla animes refuse to show a fully functioning MechaGodzilla? I mean, this one's not even fully built yet, which is also why I didn't include it on the list. Also, I should mention that a black recolor of this MechaGodzilla showed up in the 90s television series Godzilla Island for some reason. I like the white eyes, which kinda reminds me of GMK Godzilla. Showa MechaGodzilla is a classic. It might just be the best suit in the entire Showa era, given it's the only one that's still in good condition today. All thanks to the space titanium, no doubt.
You mean it's from outer space?
To the surprise of literally nobody, the Millennium Era's MechaGodzilla, nicknamed Kiryu, claims the top spot for himself. In fact, he's so amazing, I even bought a figure of him. Kiryu is powered by the skeleton of the original 1954 Godzilla, which is easily the coolest origin for the character, and the original beast's consciousness is still in there and can even be reawakened through hearing the roar of another Godzilla, which the new Goji of this continuity so graciously provides. Like Showa MechaGodzilla, Kiryu actually has two separate looks between his two movies. His design from 2002's Godzilla Against MechaGodzilla is easily recognizable from his giant blue shoulder-mounted cannons. They're equipped with jet boosters to help quickly close in the gap between him and Godzilla, giving Kiryu the chance to stab the overgrown lizard with his wrist-mounted maser blades, which also possess railguns for good measure. His silver color scheme and shoulder cannons are reminiscent of Heisei's iteration, but the actual body frame of Kiryu is aligned closely with the sharper and angular look of Showa's. The head shape is perfect, having the longer snout of Heisei MechaG, but retaining the intimidating look of Showa MechaG. Plus, the head fin has never looked cooler. And that goes for the dorsal fins as well. He has three larger and jagged ones down the back of his torso that resemble the 1954 Godzillas, of which of course he's built over. His tail is also covered in 3 rows of smaller triangular plates. One detail I adore is the striped neck that helps break up the shiny silver metal by giving us a glance at the complex wiry inner workings of the robot, which is something seen throughout all the suit, giving it a much greater degree of detail than its predecessors and preventing it from falling into the same trappings of Heisei's silver blob-like appearance. Kiryu's chestplate opens outwards from 3 interlocking doors, revealing his most powerful weapon, the Absolute Zero Cannon. And besides having a badass name, this cryo cannon is able to fire a beam of frozen energy so frigid it can turn skyscrapers into ice instantly, reducing them to nothing but a puddle. Unfortunately, Kiryu can't use this weapon too frequently since it eats up almost half of his power supply, and it takes a while to wind up, which Godzilla made sure to exploit. Thankfully, Kiryu has no shortage of ranged weapons since his back unit can fire a platoon of missiles and has the ability to unleash twin maser cannons from his mouth that prove to be quite effective against the Big G. He also has limited flying capabilities that honestly pale in comparison to his older incarnations, but still prove to be effective against his foe. Besides, Kiryu is more of a brawler than those past bozos and isn't afraid to fight Godzilla in good old fisticuffs, and will take any opportunity he has to smash Godzilla right into a building. With this impressive arsenal, Kiryu is able to drive away Godzilla and end their first clash in a draw, proving himself as the only MechaGodzilla to not be completely obliterated by the respective Godzilla. Really shows you how effective Kiryu is, huh? Regardless, he was required to go under extensive repairs in the aftermath of the battle, leading to his slight redesign in 2003's Godzilla Tokyo SOS. His blue jetpack and gauntlets have been made silver to better fit with the rest of his aesthetic, and there's a few other small differences in the structure of his suit, but the most notable is with his chestplate, which now includes the text MFS3, standing for Megalon's Final Stand Through, which obviously served as an incredibly early teaser for the Godzilla vs. Megalon 2023 short, with the 3 serving as a hint of the release year. It also refers to the amount of times I've linked that video in the description. In addition to the new drip, Kiryu has plenty of extra firepower to finally take down Godzilla once and for all, having upgraded missile launchers and railguns that greatly outclass his 2002 counterpart. He also trades out his faulty Absolute Zero gun for a lethally powerful triple maser cannon that does quite the number on Godzilla, who has already sustained a serious chest wound from their previous encounter. And let me tell ya, he's gonna need some kaiju band-aids after Kiryu burrows into his skin with his handy new Showa-era patented drill arm. Using these new weapons, and with a little help from Mothra, Kiryu actually beats Godzilla, but right before he lands the killing blow, he goes rogue and picks up Godzilla and flies them both into the depths of the Japanese trench. It's one of the best scenes in the entire franchise because this final action was decided upon the spirit of the original 1954 Godzilla, in which it chose to end its own life by trapping it and the new Godzilla back to where they both presumably first came from, made even more tear-jerking when it sends one final message to its final pilot, Yoshito Chujo. Kiryu really has it all: a badass design, an unparalleled arsenal of weapons, 2 banger films to reside in, and a deep and rich story all its own. It'll take a lot for any future MechaGodzilla to come even close to knocking this mechanized superstar off of his throne. Well, there you have it, another ranking down. Hopefully you didn't hate my list too much, and hell, maybe yours was even the same as mine. Well, minus SpaceGodzilla. Anyways, feel free to leave your rankings in the comments below, and if you want some more epic Godzilla ranking content, you can check out my Godzilla Designs ranking video I did a while back, which is linked in the description down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a wonderful day.